changemakers. Thank you for tuning into the Hacking the Patriarchy podcast. I'm your fervent feminist host, Raven O'Neill, and I get the honors of sitting down weekly with diverse experts from all walks of life to explore ideas, opportunities, and strategies that we can all use to hack our way to better lives within patriarchal societies. If you're ready to hack patriarchal systems and structures, I invite you to join us and help move the needle. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Betti-rooted Lionheart, who identifies as she, her. Betti is a shamanic healer, minister of the Church of Earth Healing, and founder of Braided Root Waters Healing Sanctuary in Trumansburg, New York. She specializes in working with teens, queer people, and those feeling environmental despair. Betti offers one-on-one shamanic healing sessions and teaches shamanic journeying to help people reconnect with their power and develop earth-centered spiritual practices. Please join me in giving Betti the warmest welcome. Hello, Betti. Welcome to the show today. I'm excited to have you on. We are going to be talking about women and the spiritual growth, trauma healing, all the things that come with coming into fully being a woman and accepting that space and what that might mean for our personal and professional lives, our growth, and all the things that come along with that. So welcome to the show. I would love to start off by hearing just a little bit about your background and how we landed here having this conversation.
Great. Thanks, Raven. I'm really excited to be here. Let's see. Well, I'm a shamanic healer, and what that means is that I have learned the skill of the shamanic journey. And when we shamanic journey, we allow a piece of our spirit to safely leave our body, to travel into the spirit world, to connect with, interact with our spirit guides. And we do that in order to receive healing, guidance, transformational experiences, unconditional love. And importantly, like I said, it's a skill, so anyone can learn to do that. It's accessible to everyone. I also consider myself a spiritual empowerment activist because I teach people to shamanic journey. And what that means is putting people's healing into their own hands, giving people access to their own direct connection to the divine, to their spirit guides.
That is awesome. I feel like I could talk to you all day about the journey and your background and how you got there and what that looks like for people, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're going to touch on it, but not directly. So thank you for the second part of that explanation, because that's really where we're going to take this conversation.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at that healing process and all of that, but for women with a little bit more of a business spin to it. So we wanted to start off looking at success and how men and women define that differently and what that looks like in your lens and in the feminine lens, what success might look like, and how do we define that? How can we redefine that?
Yeah, so success from a feminine lens and from my own personal perspective is being able to live our purpose. It's tapping into why we're on the planet at this time. And so spiritually speaking, there is this idea that our spirits decide before we come here why we're coming here, what our gifts are going to be, what we're coming here to do, how we're meant to make an impact. And then we're born and we forget. And in our long ago tribal past, right, we were born into small, tight-knit communities where every member of that community had the sacred task of welcoming the new ones and helping them remember why they came, remember what they were going to be contributing to their community. And we don't have that anymore. So I spent 37 years of my life flailing around, wondering what I'm supposed to do, trying this, trying that, failing here, failing there. And until I finally found why I'm here, discovered my purpose. And so once we know what that is, we can start taking the next step and the next step towards expressing that in the world.
Oh, I am gonna go a little off our topic because I knew you were gonna say stuff that I wanted to dive deeper into. And I think that this is an important conversation. I myself feel I I have had business mentors in the past who have spoken to me about that journey of coming in and forgetting. And it was so funny because I would say stuff and she would say to me, "Oh no, you chose this. You just chose it to come in and experience it and you have forgotten what that was and now you're going through it and you're learning about that process." And I always loved that view because not having gone through any kind of shamanic training or growth or experience, I just love that that's the idea. And I would say that experiencing today's world has changed dramatically from years past, many, many years past, from ancient times.
Yeah.
And within that, I feel like finding that purpose is even harder in today's world. So, going completely off topic, how would you tell our audience to start looking at that, to kind of get the inkling and to dig deeper and to kind of search for that purpose?
Yeah, two things come to mind. One is that what we care deeply about, what we feel passionately about, what makes us really angry in terms of what's happening in the world, that is likely where we want to make a change. And then the other piece that's been really important to me is learning to allow my fear to be my true north. So for much of my life, I've let my fear make me move away from things. And I fairly recently realized that my fear is actually showing me, no, that is the thing. I'm afraid of that thing because I want it. I'm afraid of that thing because I want to move towards it. I'm afraid of that because that's where I want to make my difference. So that's been a really helpful compass point for me.
Oh, it's funny. You kind of answered my next question, which was that women do tend to embrace this kind of growth more easily. And with that comes the fear of being seen and being heard. And we're
Yes.
conditioned that way and how we might break free, which I think is the perfect dovetail into answering that, but also looking at that, addressing the fear and what does that look like in next steps.
Yeah, addressing the fear. Well, where I'd like to go with this, and I guess, yeah, my background is going to mean that I'm going to lean towards the spiritual and how I answer things. Um, Women, and particularly women in the healing arts, women who are wanting to make a big difference in the world, activists, we often have past lives where we've suffered and been killed for being a witch. You know, a witch is the medicine woman, is the healer. Um, we've suffered and died for trying to make change for our communities. And so we carry that fear from our past lives. We also carry it ancestrally because, we have ancestors who suffered. And healing those wounds, that's been a huge part of my own journey. Healing that I do for myself with my spirit guides, it's all the shamanic based healing. I've done a lot of work on healing past lives, on ancestral healing. And I'd actually really love to share quite a profound experience that I had last year. So I hold something called a wailing circle. And a wailing circle is this really amazing and intense experience of coming together in a group of people to feel and express the really hard, heavy emotions, the despair, the grief, the rage, and to move that through our bodies in sound and body movement, pounding on pillows, just letting it's trauma healing. It's letting all of this energy emotional energy that we keep bottled up inside, right? We're taught to stay quiet. We're taught to not feel. We're taught to not express. And holding that all in uses a tremendous amount of energy. And in this wailing circle, I re-experienced a past life. And in that past life, I was a woman, I was a healer, I was being burned at the stake as a witch. And I relived those moments of burning and dying. And I wasn't experiencing the pain though. What I experienced was this, was the goddess as snake, serpent, coiling up in my torso and then taking my spirit across to the other side. And it was so comforting. It was so comforting to know that the goddess protects us in that moment, in those moments, so that I can do my work in the world without fear of the consequences, because we are in a time in the United States, right, where it's again becoming dangerous to do what I do. And I'm also newly queer. And it's a time where queer people are being targeted. We had one we had one rights and made progress, and now things are going backwards. And so like I just said, I'm newly queer, so as of June of 2023. And when I realized that, began to embrace it, I went to fear. I went to, how big of a target do I want to paint on my chest, on my back? And I had to allow myself to be in that fear and ultimately remember that fear points me to my true north, that yes, I want to move towards that thing. I want to move towards serving the queer community and doing that loudly, even if that means there might be danger there for me.
Yeah. Oh man. I will say I feel like you touched on today's politics and in 2023 when you decided to move towards that fear of identifying as queer. It is, I think it is dangerous to be a woman. I think it is even more dangerous to be queer. Probably another layer of danger being that you are a shamanic killer and people don't always accept that. So I want to commend you for your bravery. I think
Thank
that
you.
we need more of that, and that is the only way we get out of this. We,
Yes.
our truth selves are the only way we get past this, because the resistance is in, I don't want to say authenticity because that word has a I'm not sure what the replacement word is, but living wholly as yourself, as you're supposed to, as your soul chose to come in and do the thing that it had committed to doing in that journey. So thank you. Thank you for the vulnerability and speaking your truth. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pivoting a little, I wanted to look at the different kinds of feminine. So there is the whole light feminine work, the dark
Mm.
feminine work. And I didn't know if that's something you speak to, but just really looking at the differences for those people who are tuning in who aren't familiar with it, what those differences are and how to work with both and to really grow with both.
Mhm. Yes. So the divine dark is something that my spirit guides have been teaching me about for several years now, and I'll do my best to try to describe this. So we live in a world where everything that is dark has been cast as evil, everything that is light has been cast as good. And it's just not that, it's not that simple, and that really throws out a huge part of what reality actually is. And so the way that I try to describe this is, if you imagine going outside and looking up at the sky on a clear, dark, starry night, all of that blackness is the divine dark. It is the cosmic womb. It's where all of creation comes from. All of the stars in that dark come from, originate in that darkness. And in our own bodies, our sacrum, our sacral chakras, in those of us who have female bodies, right, our womb space is or would be there. Um, but all of us, regardless of gender identification, right, we carry in our sacrums that cosmic womb energy, that divine dark. That's where our creativity lies. That's where we create actual new life. And if you think about the one male father God religions, or I'll speak mainly to the Christian. I was raised Roman Catholic, and, God was always portrayed as like, the rays of the sun, this divine light. So again, going back to looking up at the sky on a clear, dark night, the one Father God religions would have us just see what we can see when the sun is out, right? So that means all we can actually see is within the atmosphere of the earth. That's microscopic compared to the vastness of what reality is, what the cosmos is, what is available to us, right? But the patriarchal religions wanted to cut us off from our own direct connection to the divine by making us only see within that little tiny contained sphere, and putting, priests, other religious, primarily men, right, between the people and the divine. And so the divine dark, that's where I go. That's where my spirit travels when I go into the spirit world to do my healing work. It's into that divine dark space. That's where the goddesses reside that we so desperately need to reclaim. Um, so it's very important. And I notice it more and more as I'm really connecting with and understanding the divine dark. I notice more and more how there's such an emphasis on working with the divine light, on being a light worker, on, trying to cast out the darkness. And it feels kind of dangerous to me that people who um, are wanting to do good, they're wanting to work with the light, they've actually fallen prey to that casting of all things dark as evil. I think that the shifts that we need to make for life on this planet, any life, not just human life, to persist requires embracing the divine dark. It requires reclaiming the goddesses. It requires reclaiming our connection to the earth-based spirituality.
Mhm. I had several thoughts there. Um, I want to look. It's a little bit of a different conversation, but I want to look at that in the moment. But I also want to say that within that dark, there is so much good work to be done there. What I wanted to look at though, what your points made me think of is also around language, kind
Hmm.
of the language we use that has brought that. So I don't know if in the shamanic work you do, it's the same, the divine dark is the same thing as shadow work. I hear shadow work a lot. I've done my own shadow work, which to me is also within that dark, is kind of where the trauma might sit, or the past lives, past karma, all of that stuff sits there, and we don't tend to work in that space because it has been cast as evil, which is a language thing. I
Yeah.
wonder if we we, the human collective that exists now, were to massage the language and slowly get away from the use of certain languages, if it would be easier to accept that.
Hmm. Probably. I would say probably yes. Language is, yeah, it's really very important. It really does sort of circumscribe what we're able to think, how we're able to think. Um, yeah, so I think that that really could and would make a large difference. And yes, I want to, yeah, agree that shadow work, trauma work, yes, all of those things lie in that divine dark space. One of the ways that I do, well, one of the places that I go when I do shamanic work is I go into a person's void space, and void is a word that I tend to use interchangeably with the cosmic womb, with our own womb. So I go into a person's void space and I work with a spirit guide whose name is Keeper of the Void. And we go there primarily to access people's past lives, but also to access the very traumatic memories that are locked away, right? That people don't have immediate mental access to, they're not aware of, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, again, so fascinating the language, because I would always think, I think of a void as a void, literally as the kind of the the part that is like stricken from the record, the part that is almost doesn't exist.
Mm.
So that's again the language. I think too, going back to the language and looking at it, the use of divine, I feel like I love the word, but I imagine that there are a lot of people that don't love that word. You throw in dark and it's then it's got a, it's got a like double negative meaning for a lot of people probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of all of that, I mean, totally off topic. I saw the other day someone had posted, they said that they truly believe that Adam was the person to eat the apple in the garden and blamed Eve, and we've gone on from there. Again, it's like, oh my goodness, yeah, could have been.
So I'd love to speak on that for a moment if,
Yeah, I'd love it. Because I had a little, I was like, yeah, I like that.
yeah. So let's see. Um, there's a couple things, but I'll start with Adam and Eve. Um, what I've been shown by my spirit guides is that that apple tree, and maybe it was a pomegranate tree, it doesn't really matter historically what that tree was. And I think of it as apple tree. Um, that tree is actually our ladder to the spirit world. So when I teach people to shamanic journey, what I learned from my teacher is that the first most important step is to ground, center, and shield. And the way I've been asked by my spirit guides to teach that is to have people become a tree. Imagine becoming a tree, grow your roots into the core of the earth, send your arm branches up to embrace the moon or the sun or whatever cosmic being you're most connected to. And then slip a part of your spirit out of that tree, climb that tree into the cosmos. I go to the moon, so I land on the moon, and that's where I meet my spirit guides. So that tree actually represents our own direct access to the divine, which we already discussed. The one male father god religions did not want us to have that access. That is why the apple tree was forbidden. And eating the apple, Eve eating the apple, was Eve saying, no, I want to have that access. I'm going to eat this apple. I'm going to have that knowledge. I'm going to continue to be able to connect directly with the divine. And then to sort of go a little bit before Eve, right, there was Lilith. Lilith, who was created from clay at the same time as Adam, who has historically been cast as Adam's first disobedient wife and then discarded. And I'm mentioning her because she has come in really powerfully into my life and into healing work for myself and others. And she's angry, she's pissed off, and she's here to help us access our rage. Because, like I said before, holding it in costs us so much energy. And actually, we need to tap into, feel, and express our rage in order to make the change that needs to happen. And so Lilith is coming in to help us do that. And one of the things that I would really, well, let's see. Before I share this practice, one of the things that Lilith recently shared with me is that, unbeknownst to him, Donald Trump is in service of the goddess and in service of life because he's making it so easy for us to know our rage. Right? He's making it so easy for us to be angry and to access that rage. We need to access it. We don't want to shove it down anymore. We need to access that rage to make the change that has to happen. So, one of the practices that I've been trying to share as much as I can. It was given to me, I call it for myself a raging Betti session. So for you, it would be a raging Raven session. For anyone else, raging, insert your name here session. And what that looks like is when I feel angry, when I feel rage, but not just those, when I feel scared or when I feel the like, oh, I just don't think I can get through what I need to get through today, or I don't feel like I'm good enough or equal to what I need to do. Um, Instead of letting that feeling consume so much of my energy, I do a raging Betti session. I have a bolster, or it can be a pile of pillows. It can be, a stack of blankets, and I put those on the floor. I get down on my knees on a pillow, and I pound with my fists. I yell, I scream, I rage. I say the things that want to be said, that want to come out, that we tend to hold in. And so it's really about feeling and expressing that rage in a safe way that does not harm others. I need to feel safe in doing that. I can't do that when I'm in the house, with my kids in the next room. So when that's the case, I can take my bolster out to my car. They're pretty soundproof, right? And go in there and pound and rage. It really frees up our energy to do what we need to do. I'll go from that session feeling, well, just the yucky feelings have gone away, right? And I can take the next step forward and the next step forward.
I so it's hacking the patriarchy, and I love to look at hacks. So thank you for that hack. I would beg the question. So I do think that energy has to move, right? It has to move. If we don't move it, I'm sure that, we're gonna get sick somehow. It's gonna
Yes.
manifest. So you have to move energy. So for those of us from the shamanic healing standpoint, for those of us who might not rage in that way, do you ever recommend other ways to get that energy out? Like, I know that I can go run. Like, that will always clear some energy for me. Um, I like movement too. I do love dancing. I've joined a lot of Zooms where we dance beforehand, and that's just not, I'm like, oh no, I was definitely taught not to do that.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to look at maybe other ways you might advise clients and those tuning in how to move that energy, and especially in a way that feels aligned with the way they might want to do things.
Yeah, let's see. I do love the dancing, Body movement of any kind. Um, I feel like I use dancing more so for lifting the energy up from kind of a low to a higher, like I'm someone who runs sad, right? I'm someone who runs sad, and dancing will really help me raise that energy and feel empowered. Yeah, as I'm sharing this raging practice, people are afraid of it. People are afraid of it and don't want to go there. And so part of me wants to push back a little bit on your question and be like, yes, these other ways are helpful, but they aren't necessarily doing the same thing. They're not allowing us to, right, just running isn't raging. Dancing isn't necessarily raging. And it's really, especially as women, we've been taught not to be angry, not to rage, and we're afraid of it, right? So again, fear as that compass north, fear, I'm afraid of doing this raging session, so I'm going to back away from it. I really want to push people to be like, no, you're afraid of it because you need it, because you want it, because it can really unlock something for you, and it's scary, but really, what do you have to lose? Nobody's watching you. And try it, right? Just try it and see what that does for you. It's really incredible what it can do for you.
Would you advise raging? So when you gave us the hack on how you rage, I love that. Does plate throwing or axe throwing also get the shot? I think of those places where you can go throw plates. I'm like, now that is some raging. I am probably down for it any day. Like, let me throw some plates. Let me break some shit.
Um, yeah, I imagine, I mean, there's the part of me that like cares about destroying stuff for the sake of right, like I care about all the trash in the landfills, in the ocean, in the whatever. So like, if you're going to break plates, I hope you're then going to make gorgeous mosaics with them and not just put them in the landfill, right? But like, that's where my brain goes on that. Yeah.
That is a business idea though. Like, don't just go throw plates for throwing plates. Throw plates. Like that's an energy transfer. Throw some plates, shatter some plates, then take that glass and make a beautiful mosaic. I love that idea actually. That's brilliant. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Um, I want to look at one of my favorite topics. It's one of just my deepest passions, and I think that is perfect for this conversation, which is that the patriarchy thrives on women. Let's not even say women, let's just say society being very fragmented, being very segregated, separated, and existing in these small places where we're not coming together. And I definitely use women as example. I don't know, I have a teenage daughter, and I'm not sure exactly where it comes from, where it starts, but that competitive like just pulling people in different directions and not really coming together. So being separated versus together. The patriarchy thrives on that. How
Yes.
do we better approach connecting with other women and bringing community together and building community? And again, that's probably the only way we get out of this mess in the end.
Yes. Yeah. Um, I mean, the first thing I want to say about that is, lifelong, I've been trying to answer that question for myself. I've been trying to find and create that community. And the so I'm creating a healing sanctuary. It's called Braided Root Waters Healing Sanctuary on 105 acres of land that I own in the white colonizer way, but I prefer to speak of loving and stewarding that land. And I mention it because in 2010, my now ex-husband and I came here to create an intentional community. because it's so hard to live so individualized. It's so hard to raise children in the nuclear family unit, in the broken nuclear family unit, and that didn't come to pass for me. And so that more recently has shifted into wanting to create around myself sisterhood, just a small handful of other women who can really support each other in all the ways, emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. And then again, more recently, even to have queer community around myself. So, in my experience in trying to create intentional community, though, I learned something really important, which is that I'm going to speak only for white middle class American culture, because that's where I'm situated. When in relationships, in friendships, in, trying to create an intentional community, we move from the honeymoon phase where everything is great to now there are problems to solve. It is so much easier for people to turn away from each other, walk away from each other, than to turn towards each other and problem solve. And so I think that communication, that willingness to communicate about all the things, including the hard things, which we don't, again, I'm speaking white American, we don't have that skill. We don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to problem solve. And that's going to be core to forming circles of community, circles of support, the support that we need to move forward.
Yeah, again, language and communication
Yeah.
is imperative. Uh, ugh, yeah. Yeah, I wonder, I don't know how old your children are, but again, I have a teenage daughter, and it's also for me, I don't sure there's trauma there, so I don't like have clear memories of all the things in my childhood, but I don't remember at what point it became okay to be mean to people. I don't recall where that came from. I know that I did it just like most people do, and I know that all the kids around me did it. And I don't even, I'd like to pinpoint
Mm-hmm.
where it came from. Maybe that'll come to me in a dream, or now that I've asked for it, I'm sure
Yeah.
I'll receive it. But with my daughter, I try to teach her to not be that way. I try to get ahead of it. I saw a terrible Instagram post where it was talking about the mom of a teenage daughter, her teenage daughter coming home and be like, Jessica from third period, blah, blah, blah. And then the mom getting involved and be like, yeah, I hate Jessica too. And so I was about to hammer out a response like, this is not the way, don't do this. Like, don't do this. And instead I was like, nope, don't respond. That's not where your energy spent. Instead, I showed my daughter and I was like, we don't do this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if someone is getting on your nerves, you tell them, and you don't come and talk to other people about it. You don't talk to your friends about it. You address it with them. So
Yeah.
ideally, as we are awakening, hopefully we are teaching our children to be a little more present and a little more empathetic, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's let's see if I can pull this thread that, like, some of the meanness, right? Some of the going behind a person's back is that we've been taught to paste on the smile and just be, kind and pleasant and not speak our truth, right? So we've been taught to not speak directly to that person that we're having an issue with about our truth, about what's wrong, about what needs to shift in the relationship. We're taught to smile and then go speak badly behind their back to someone else because it has to come out somewhere.
Thank you. Oh, yes, it does. It has to come out some way. That's exactly, you nailed it. I heard you I actually saw where you were going before you got there. I was like, nailed it. Absolutely. And that is the thing, because I have my own communication issues from the way I was raised, from the school system when I was like, all the different things in life have caused communication challenges for myself. And I definitely don't want that for my children. And I think teaching them to be more open to communicating, again, makes for a better future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heading back into healing. Actually, we are going to start wrapping up, so I'll ask one more question
Okay.
and then we'll dive into the wrap up. Looking at healing. Again, hacking the patriarchy, we always look at male versus women dynamics. We are very different creatures. We're very similar creatures at times. But healing and the journey of healing, I feel, is very different. And I don't know if it's different because we have been told that it's different, so therefore it is. But the openness and the I almost said willingness to go through the healing process, I feel like women tend to accept it way more. So I just want to look at how we can empower all humans to take on a healing journey.
Yeah. Um, Trying to discern where I'd like to go with that. Well, I think where I'd like to go with that is that we can't force anyone into their healing journey onto their healing path. Um, we all come to it when we come to it. Um, and actually, in one of my earlier journeys, when I was new to this, I learned to shamanic journey in 2016. I had a journey in which I actually went and spoke with my grandmother, my mom's mother, and she told me straight up that my mom wasn't going to do her healing work. And I guess it was helpful for me to know that so that I wasn't trying to nudge her, push her in that direction. You know, it really helped me realize that it's not my place to help any of my family members step onto that path. We really can't do that for anyone else. But what we can potentially do is not, what's the word that I want? Well, not continue to prop people up in their unhealthy behaviors, right? So sometimes that means needing to leave a romantic relationship because you can't fix the other person, you can't set them onto their healing path, but you don't have to continue to enable them. That's the word I wanted, enable. You can step away, and maybe in your stepping away that puts them a little bit closer to recognizing, oh, there are some things that I need to attend to. I'm not sure if that fully answers your question, but
No, I mean, you did address it, because even after it came out my mouth, I was like, come on, Raven. Like, you can't get people to do things that it's not, if it's not in their, it's it's not in their path. That's one thing. And then there's not in this moment is another thing. Um, I don't know where I learned it, but somewhere along my journey, I learned how to almost be indifferent. I'm very good. I feel like one of my gifts is being able to go like, nope, it's not going to happen. So just let it go, Raven. This isn't going to happen the way you hope it is. So just let it go. Um, I love to wrap up the show with 3 hacks listeners can take to improve their life, bring it into their life on the topic. Since we are talking about this spiritual journey, this healing, all of the things that come along with your work as a shamanic healer, how might you, not even how might you, what hacks, top 3 hacks for our listeners?
Okay, so two of them have already come up. One is the Raging Betti session, the Raging Raven session. I really, really hope people will try that. And the other one, the second one, is Sisterhood, is starting to collect, yeah, that small group of people who are willing to communicate about the hard things, right? And then the third one that it'll take, just a little explaining, but I would love to share that here. I had a really powerful shamanic journey in which I inhabited the body of an extremely ancient woman. And I just knew the power, the connection that she had with her body. So a very long time ago, we were in such collaboration with the physical body that we could control the amount of our moon blood. If we were in a time of creating something big, I'm not talking about a baby, I'm talking about some gift to our community, some piece of change, we could generate more blood, and our blood was used in ritual manifestation. Right? We've been taught to think it's disgusting, to hate it, all of these things because it's so powerful. It's another way that the patriarchy has taken our power away from us. We also, at that time that I felt in that ancient body, we controlled whether or not we got pregnant. And I'm in perimenopause, and I've been working with my moon blood for some time, but it at a certain point I'd gotten a little bit lazy about it, and my spirit guides were like, the time that you have for using this is limited, and you better not waste another drop of that powerful manifestation magic. So there's lots of things like the Diva cup that, in which you can like collect your blood. I don't use those. I use the 100% cotton, the Natricare pads. I soak them in water and then I squeeze the bloody water out, put it in canning jars, put it in my fridge, and I use it to manifest the things that I want to create, the world that I want to see, right? That I want us to build together. And so I get that that's another suggestion that's probably like a lot of people will move backwards from rather than towards right away. But it's so important. And that knowledge, right? We can reclaim that deep connection with our bodies such that we can choose or not pregnancies, right? We can reclaim that for the young ones. I'm beyond that, right? That knowledge isn't for me, but it is for the young ones. And I'm not quite sure how, right, how to get us back there, but we can start moving towards it. And there's a lot of women doing a lot of really good work towards reclaiming our bodies and our power in that way.
Yeah. And I would say that even if you moved back from collecting your blood or anything like that, a big point to take from that is to learn to feel back into your body no matter what. Like
Yeah.
it has all the information. It has all the information, and if you just tune in, it would be amazing what you would find. So,
Yes. And sometimes we need to hear something that we recoil from, so that we can have that reaction, and then maybe we'll hear it again somewhere else and again somewhere else, and we can start moving towards it.
yeah. For the listeners tuning in who want to connect with you, who want to reach out, how can they find you?
Oh, yes. My website is sacraltransformations.com, SACRAL, as in the sacral chakra. And I did want to mention that I do have a free gift on there, which is a voice recording of a guided shamanic journey. So if you're curious about what this shamanic journeying thing is all about, you can go grab that free gift and try that out on your own. And I also have a few episodes of my own podcast available on my website that shares really intimate details of some of my most profound journeys. So if you're interested in, any of that kind of stuff, you can find it there.
Awesome. And I will put those links in the show notes.
Okay.
Betti, thank you so much for so much of your time today. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to today's episode. For all the juicy deets on this episode, be sure to check out our show notes or give us a holler on Instagram at Hacking the Patriarchy Podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support this podcast, don't be shy. Please share it with your friends. Sharing is caring after all. Lastly, if you'd like to lend your personal support, please take a moment to tell the world about it with a review on your favorite streaming platform. We'd be forever grateful. Tune in again soon to enjoy a brand new episode of the Hacking the Patriarchy podcast. And until next time, keep on hacking, my friends.